This is power and purpose personified, walking towards justice, fighting for freedom. This is speaking now, empowering the next generation to know how to live with confidence and precision, to move with mastery and meaning. This is a spirit that is free, traveling one coast to the next, escaping the comforts of home. This is finding new friends and exploring the warrior within to destinations amazing, to destinations unknown. This is what it means to keep pounding, to cheer for the home team without hesitation. This is love and life, success and sacrifice. This is Yolanda Trotman, and this is The Conversation.
Good evening, everyone. Oh my goodness. My name is Yolanda Trotman, and welcome to The Conversation. Ooh, I have missed y'all. So listen, before we get started, had to take a nice little summer hiatus of a couple months to just kind of go do some things and live life and just enjoy life. So definitely took an opportunity to restructure the conversation in some ways. So I'm really excited about the second half of this season as we walk into the fall season. So I'm going to talk about those changes just briefly in a second. But listen, it's hump day, and what better way to kick off the fall season, kick off hump day, literally, not figuratively, as we talk about two things that we talk about all the time, which is love and sex. And so what I wanted to do with this show specifically, as we kind of talk about those two topics, is to take a different approach, because there's plenty of shows out there that talk about relationships, plenty of shows that talk about sex, plenty of shows that talk about that. No holds barred. This is not going to be an exception. So a couple of disclaimers. This show is for mature audiences only. So if you're catching it now or catching the replay, this is not for the youngins. This is for grown folks conversation, especially with some of the topics that we're going to be covering. So if you haven't already done so, make sure that you like, follow, and subscribe at all things at the Convo Pod Show, especially if you have not yet subscribed, because there's going to be some bonus content that's coming to the YouTube channel. Very, very easy to find. So you can go over to YouTube, simply type in The Conversation with Yolanda Trotman, and it pops up. So definitely take a moment tonight and go and subscribe. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you visit the website, which is theconvopodshow.com. There you can find all of the past episodes. New merchandise is coming and more. You can also subscribe to our newsletter there, and there will be some more information there. So what is happening? What's changing with the conversation? Before we bring on our guests, before we dive into the topic. So a couple of things are going to be a little bit different going forward, particularly for the rest of season 3. Episodes are going to be every other Wednesday instead of every Wednesday. They will still be live. They will still be audience driven. The majority of the shows will still be live through Facebook and YouTube, but depending on a couple of my guests that I have that are coming up in October and November, just given the nature of who they are, we'll probably be doing those on Instagram as well. So if you're just tuning in, make sure you drop us a heart. Let us know where you're watching from. If you have questions and you don't want to post the questions in the chat, that's okay. So if you have questions that you want to ask Julie or Todd tonight, make sure you drop those questions. Send a quick email to theconvopodshow@gmail.com. I'll ask those questions on your behalf confidentially, because we really want this to be an audience-driven, audience interactive show. So whatever questions you have, you can drop them there. If you're checking in from YouTube, make sure you drop us a heart as well and let us know where you're watching from. So let's get to it, shall we? So as I said, tonight's show is about love and sex. This is about dating, relationships on the front end, and then, of course, marriage and sex therapy on the back end, and especially talking about sex education, because one of the things that is so particularly important is that we learn to have open conversations, but have open conversations with people who can provide good information, good, solid information. So if you're tuning in, as I said, and I'll say this periodically throughout, make sure you drop your questions in the comments, or you can email them over at theconvopodshow@gmail.com. So that said, let's just get to it. So the first person that I'm bringing, she's actually been on the show before. I invite you to go over to the convopodshow.com website, and you'll be able to check her original show, which we did in studio before COVID hit. We also did a mini show at the beginning of COVID, but our first show was in studio, and we really went into the original format of the conversation. We talked about her story, and we talked about dating in general. I've known Julie for years. She's a soror. Had to throw that out there. And she is the founder of Simone, which is in part a relationship coaching company, but also matchmaking. So do you hear what I said? Matchmaking, very important. So we're going to start with Julie, but we really want to have a real adults only conversation about dating, because let's face it, it's hard out here, especially if you're single, newly single, sort of single, situationship. All of that makes it difficult, especially while we're in the midst of a pandemic that's not appearing to go away anytime soon. And it's also important that we kind of talk about what that means, and of course what that means as far as dating and relationships. So welcome to the show, none other than the beautiful Julie Wadley. Hey girl, hey. Yes ma'am, yes ma'am. So for people who don't know who you are, tell us where you're from, and how in the world did you get into matchmaking?
Well, originally from Northern Virginia, DC area, shout out to Northwest. And I had been, like with a lot of people, straight out of college, going to corporate America and trying to make my way, make some money, and realizing that I was not happy with what I was doing. And so while visiting my sister in New York, talking about what girls do, talk about men, relationships, dating, all that, she's just like, you know what? You have been in your relationship for a very long time, and you're always giving really good advice. Why don't you make this your business? And at first I was kind of like, nah, that really wasn't where I was trying to go. But the more I thought about it, I realized that people who look like us aren't in this space. And we as a community have a long way to go when it comes to, relating to each other and building legacies, and, really just trying to make sure that we have healthy, strong relationships to help, build the community. So I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to be the change that I wish to see when it comes to Black women getting the love that they deserve and the love that they desired, based on their lifestyle, based on their choices, and based on who they are. So that's how I started the business. And I've been in business for about 8 years now, and still loving it. Definitely has its challenges, especially since COVID, but we're still here and kicking.
And so when you decided to at least start in the, relationship, did you start with a matchmaking first, or did you start in the relationship life coaching phase first?
It was both. I wanted to do both at the same time, because you really can't delve into matchmaking without focusing on if the person is really even ready to be in the relationship. So there's a lot of work that needs to happen before you're ready to kind of sit in that chair and, let somebody into your life. So I wanted to have both, not only to help provide like a rounded, a more robust service, but also just want to make sure that, this is legit. Like, it's not just putting butts in seats and, what you see on TV and the glitz and glamour of it. Like, this is really digging into who you are, and getting into some vulnerable places. And I wanted to support that appropriately.
So when you started, obviously smartphones were here, obviously, that type of thing. Online dating was here. We're going to get into that in a second. All of those things existed 8 years ago when you started. Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest change that you've seen since the pandemic? And before you answer that, that is one of the questions that I'm asking you audience members tonight, in terms of how has COVID affected your dating life in general? So drop those answers in the comments, but based on what you've seen, how has COVID and all of this truly affected a person's dating life?
I will say it has really caused people to stop, just like with COVID in general, just in life in general. COVID has really caused people to stop and reset and think about who they're with, what they're investing their time in, what they're spending their time doing, and just saying, is this really worth my time? Before, you meet somebody online, you meet somebody on Facebook, you meet somebody through a friend or wherever. You're just like, okay, yeah, we'll go out. We'll go to dinner and we'll hang out. Or if you were really looking for someone, you flip through some apps, or you'll go on, a date that coworker, whatever. But when COVID hit, it was like, I don't know how you are at home. I don't know what your practices are. I don't know if you are pro-vaccine, not pro-vaccine, pro-mask, not mask. I don't know your hygiene habits. I don't know anything about you. And that is dangerous. It's dangerous now not knowing who you are spending your time with, because that could actually kill you now. And people started being very sensitive about who they decided to invest their time with. So that's taught us to kind of slow down and determine if people are actually worth your time.
And so do you think that's changed communication styles? Because one of the questions that came up, as far as that we'll get to in a second, is that why is it that it's so much harder for people to communicate? You would think it would be easier with people being at home and you don't necessarily go out and necessarily meet. You may talk on the phone more, you may text more, or something along those lines. One of the big things that people ask, like, why does it seem like it's so much harder now when it should be easier?
Well, it should be easier in that people are sitting down and have the time to, the so-called time to meet and to get to know someone, because you're doing this whole pen pal thing, right? Everybody's at home. You have more time online, you have more time on apps, you have more time, periods, because you're not distracted by everything else. So you think you have more time, but the mentality of the way society is, it's still very instantaneous. You want instant gratification. You still are wanting to bypass a lot of the process and a lot of the work it takes to really know someone, in order to determine if this is an authentic connection. So it seems easier, but it's actually not different. So it sort of makes people feel like, well, it should be easier. So now I'm just more frustrated. So I think people are just in a state of just frustration with not getting the results that they're looking for or expecting.
And so what do you think the biggest misconception is that people have about online dating?
That quantity is going to increase your chances of finding someone that you can really connect with. And to a certain extent, it does, right? If you are in a city that has maybe like 5 people, then a dating app is going to be helpful to you, because you can't really get out. If you are the type of person where you're not able to be out and about, you don't go out like that, online dating helps you. It's a tool to get a more access to people if you don't normally do that organically. So it's a tool for those who need it, but people are using it because people are kind of like, it's easy. It gives you a lot of options, and everybody looks great online.
Girl, bye. No, that's not true.
Well,
no, ma'am.
I'll say this. Everybody puts on a show.
I wish.
Well,
I'm sorry, I digress. Sorry, y'all.
So to your point, not everybody. I listen. I've seen the bathroom, the shady bathroom pics. I've seen people who are just throwing anything out there. But a lot of people are not who they purport to be. They're not really putting the reality of who they are and their baggage and all that. Everybody's just putting in what people want to hear online. And that's what makes it frustrating. It's just like, I bought into this person. I want to go out with this person. Who you showing me in reality? That ain't you. So again, people are being sold lemons online.
So I think, and I think Monica says it very well, that we're in this microwave society. And Monica, if you're still on, like, tell us more. What do you mean by that? But what do you think she means, Julie, in terms of a microwave society?
Well, we've been in a microwave society for years. Since technology has become a way of life, that's how we socialize. That's how we really depend on social media as a mode, our primary mode of communication. Texting is our primary mode of communication now. We have devalued just getting up and meeting people in person or having a face-to-face talk. So yes, it has made things, okay, where we at? We supposed to be popping now. We changed, we exchanged numbers, we did the, texting to and fro. We supposed to be somewhere closer now, and that's just not the case. We are a microwave society because everything that we need is now at our fingertips. You can get anything on Amazon. You can get anything that you could possibly want from all different countries in a matter of hours. That has made it so that our attention span and our patience has decreased. So the less patience that we have for things, the less patience that we have for people.
And so, well, shout out to Joe, Netta, Monica, Eric, Sharice. Those of you chiming in, if you haven't done so already, drop a wave or a thumbs up. Let us know where you're watching from. So, Julie, I think one of the questions I want to pose to the audience specifically, and put your answers in the comments, but this is the big question. Why do so many relationships fail? I mean, if we're in this microwave society, people want things to happen. Yeah. It would also stand the reason that people want a successful relationship, or at least put some sort of an effort in order to do so. So, question to the audience, for those of you who are watching live, why do so many relationships fail? I'm going to ask this of our second guest as well, because he'll be talking to us from the marriage perspective. But in general, why do you think so many relationships fail? If that's the goal, we want healthy relationships.
Yeah. We have too many options. We have way too many options. We think we have way too many options. Back in the day, you didn't go, maybe you went 30 miles out of where you were born, right? Everybody lived in the same community. You went to school, you went to high school, maybe you went to college, but you came back. Grandma lived in the same neighborhood, great grandma lived in the same neighborhood, all your cousins lived in the same neighborhood. So our community was close, right? So when you're talking about meeting people that you want to marry, most of the generations, they married their college sweetheart. They married someone that was down the block. They married someone who was in their immediate area. And so the options was just what you saw. Mm-hmm. If you didn't see nobody, they weren't an option. Now we have the option of meeting someone in Kenya or London or wherever. You can meet someone online and have a whole relationship with someone who lives on a different coast. So when you think about the amount of options that you have, it becomes analysis paralysis.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Say that again. Say that again.
It becomes analysis paralysis. You have so many options, you don't know what to choose, because it's like, I don't have to deal with your foolishness. I don't have to deal with your shenanigans. You did what? You said what? Red flag here, red flag there. Yeah, I'm not going to stand for that no more. I don't have to. Generations passed, and I will put this on women, because I think it is women that have really changed in the past couple generations. Our tolerance for the things that aren't healthy for us or aren't wanted or desired in a relationship for us, we now have the option to leave. We have the option to say, yeah, no, that's not gonna work for me. I'm gonna choose behind what's door number 2. And we are exercising those options. So when you think about why relationships aren't working, or why, people are breaking up or divorcing, it's because, one, it's analysis paralysis. You feel like there's always something better around the corner. But then you also have the option to leave if it doesn't work out for you. So those two combined, it just means there aren't too many people who are staying together for long periods of time.
So that's a good point. And it's funny you should say London, because Andy, I see you watching all the way from London. See, that's what I'm talking about. People all over the place. They just pop up. They just pop up.
And I'm so they're going to find somebody in Detroit. Watch.
Right. And so Angie, I see you. Sharice, I see you. Adrian, I see you. So y'all chime in on that piece. Couple of quick things before I take a couple of questions. So from the men, for the men are watching, if you're single, what is your biggest complaint about dating? Ladies watching, what is your biggest complaint about dating? Julie, what's the biggest complaint you hear from people about dating?
The biggest complaint is that
Do we
there
have
are
enough time for that?
no, but
Okay,
I'll
well,
try.
give me the 2-minute version.
I'll try. The biggest complaint is all the good ones are gone. That's the myth and the complaint. It's just like, oh well, every time I find a good man, he married, or every time I
What?
find a good man, he's in a relationship, or he's not available. There seems to be a scarcity of good people. People who are relationship ready, people who are don't come with excess baggage, who don't have trauma from past relationships, or mama and daddy issues. There's one of my really good girlfriends says there's pee in the water. The dating pool has pee in it. That is the biggest complaint.
Now, from women or men or both?
Both men and women feel like there is a scarcity of eligible people in which to enter into a relationship or just even build a connection. That's the biggest complaint.
So what I hear Cherie saying, and I gotta co-sign on this, is consistency. Like you meet someone, whether it's in person or online, and you're chatting it up, and then there's this ghosting phenomenon, which is just taking a whole nother level. People after the smash and dash, y'all know what I'm saying, both men and women. Especially after the smash, then they're done, or they just kind of fall off into the go riding off into the sunset. But I think the biggest thing that I think Sharice is definitely onto it is the issue with consistency. People aren't consistent in their communication, and then that it becomes the excuse. Like, for example, they're not consistent in their communication, and then that becomes the excuse for just saying, oh, I haven't heard from him or her. I guess they're just not interested, or whatever the case may be. I'm gonna let you address that, but Andy, on the other hand, says carrying no baggage from previous relationships.
So I think
so. Let's deal with the consistency piece first, but then we'll talk about the baggage, because I think Todd's going to probably spend a little bit more time on that too, especially from the therapeutic side and like tackling that issue.
So there's a couple reasons why consistency is an issue. One is the amount of options. If they're not feeling that instant gratification, or they're just like, this ain't working for me, then they're going to ghost, or they're going to move on to the next. Most people have about 2 or 3 irons in the fire. Okay. They're not just putting all of their eggs in one basket. They have maybe one that they're talking to, and then 2 others that they're kind of like, okay, I'm trying to see where that person, you're constantly meeting new people. So it's like, you have to spread yourself to get to know several people at the same time. And depending on your connection with them, you might drop a few that you're not feeling that instant gratification. So that's one piece. The other piece is we just don't have time anymore. We don't value connection and value just the structure of being in a relationship as much as we have before, because the benefits of being in a relationship can be had without actually being in a relationship. You can still have sex. You can still have a baby. You can still smash and dash and not have to worry about somebody's issues or somebody's, being usurping your time. A lot of the work that goes into relationships, people don't really want that. They want the benefits of being in a relationship. And if they don't need to be in a relationship to have the benefits of it, they won't. So that's where you're seeing the fall in the consistency. Is just like a lot of people are just like, well, we want to go, there's the process. What happened to the process? You dipping out of the process. Well, no, because I got what I wanted. Either you're not giving me what I want instantly, or somebody's willing to give it to me. So I'm gonna go with them. So it's a lot of issues that go into what the lack of consistency, and it really just depends on the person.
So that's the consistency piece. We're going to get to the baggage one in a second. Shamara, if you're still watching, I really want to talk about your comment, because I think it's fascinating, but I'm not sure exactly what you mean. So I need you to expand on what you mean by love bombing. That sounds quite delightful.
Yes.
Something that you can already speak on?
Yeah.
Or you want her to expand on it?
So love bombing is one of the characteristics of a narcissist, but we don't want to get into that right now. Love bombing is the process of you just meet someone and that person is like all into you. They like, you are the sun, you are the moon, you are the stars. Yes, ma'am. Come on, we're gonna go on this date. And you're getting all of that. Yes, like he's got it or she's got it. I'm feeling her. Like that person is literally bombing you with attention. And they're giving you everything you want in the beginning. And then when you are hooked on, when you just like, oh, yep, it's just you. I'm only dealing with you. I want to focus on you. After they got you, that's when they like, all right, got what I wanted. I'm out. On to the next.
So that's interesting as far as the love bombing. Now, Roderick kind of says the same thing, that consistency has fallen off because of the many streams of communication. One of the biggest complaints, though, that I hear, and one of the comments I see elsewhere, is that people don't know how to talk to each other anymore. Like, we respond to text messages, but we don't want to have a conversation anymore.
Yeah,
we don't want to dig deeper.
Yeah, it goes back to technology being a tool to be lazy. Why call you and go or be in a in-person conversation when I can just text you? A lot of people hide behind text because it's easy to, say, I don't want to give I don't want to give him or her bad news. I don't want to confront this situation. I'm just going to use text, or I'm going to use, oh, I didn't get your text. Oh, they hide behind technology when they don't want to face certain things.
Okay. So this is the last comment I'm gonna put up for now, because I want to be able to bring Todd on and have you both on to answer a couple of these last questions. But Netta says people don't want to invest and take time to get to know a person. I think you've already touched on that, because there's so many irons in the fire and people aren't really spending the time to get to know someone, or the least little thing happens is like, okay, I'm done, and been guilty of that. Be like,
Yep.
He's grinding his teeth. It's stressful. I don't want that.
I'm kidding, y'all.
I'm kidding.
I like the way he wore his hat. I don't like that. Yeah.
I'm kidding. Yeah, no, really, I'm kidding. But I think, but she does say that there's a scarcity of what she thinks of available men. And the if anything, for me, the frustration I have is the audacity of so many of these married men out here. Like, sir, get out of my inbox. Like, what are you doing? That type of thing. Because there's so many people out there, it seems, that don't value the institution of marriage anymore.
Yeah.
There's so many ways to get away with it, if you will. Yeah. There's so many people who don't care that you're married or in a relationship, as long as they're getting what they want out of it. Yeah. So like Netta said, where y'all at?
Well, I don't necessarily agree that there is a scarcity of available men. I think, like I said before, that's the perception. That's the complaint, is that because they're not seeing it in their face, that they're not finding men like, hounding them, and you're not able to, see a plethora of available men, then they feel that there's a scarcity. Available men don't go around with a scarlet letter on their face. They're not in the club saying, I'm available. Hey, I'm available. Come get me. No man is doing that. Mm-hmm. No man is doing that. And women aren't either. You have to catch them at the right place at the right time and be the right person. To someone who they're attracted to, there's men all around. But if they aren't checking for you, then the perception is that it's a scarcity problem. It really just depends on where you are, when you are meeting someone, and where they are in their life at the moment. People are always getting in and out of relationships, so they're in and out of availability. You just have to catch them at the right time. Timing is huge.
Okay, but we don't have time for all of this. We don't have time for all of this, because the statistics are true. There's at least it's a 10-to-1 ratio. There's a 10-to-1 ratio of women to available men. And some of this is systemic. Some of this is there's too many socioeconomic issues we don't have time to cover. But the reality is the numbers don't work in our favor, especially for Black women. They don't. Well, unless you are willing to expand your search and do some other things. But then you run into the part, and we'll hold that thought because we'll come back to that. But then you run into the part, is that person really interested in me? Or are they interested in the mystique of the Black woman? Do you want a Black woman for the sake of having a Black woman or have that conquest or whatever? Or is that really the case?
Well, this is the thing. All kinfolk ain't skinfolk. Or all skinfolk ain't kinfolk. So you can make the same argument for any person. Black men, you might find a Black man who is completely different from you. You might have a compatibility. It's a compatibility issue at the end of the day. So yes, there are fetishes for other races. That's a real thing. That is a thing. There are some men of other cultures who want to be with a Black woman because of what they heard or what they see, or they're just like, so curious, right? So yeah, those are men that you want to avoid, but that doesn't necessarily mean you throw out all white men or you throw out all men of other races because you are scared that they are not going to see you for who you are. The point is finding someone who fits in with what you're looking for, regardless of race. That's how you increase your pie. Okay.
So last question before we move on. This is one of the questions I'm going to ask our next guest too. What's the best advice you can give to women then for meeting quality eligible men? Best advice.
So the best advice is going out and doing things that you absolutely love doing. When you are out doing safely with a mask, please.
Right.
6 feet. First of all, you need to get out your house. Get out of your house and meet people. The more people get married to men and women that are in their community, but you have to constantly be refreshing that community, which means you have to be meeting new people who fit in your community, who share the same values, who share the same activities, who share the same love, passions, whatever. So if you are out and about doing the things that you enjoy doing, you're going to meet people who are absolutely attracted to you. You don't have to worry about what you look like, whether or not I'm smiling, whether or not I'm approachable, whether or not I'm saying the right thing, because you're going to be in your element. When you are in your element and you meet new people, they will immediately be attracted to you because you're magnetizing. So go out, do things that you love doing, and don't be afraid of having a conversation, initiating conversation. Women do this a lot. They're just like, well, I'm gonna just go ahead and look cute and give them the googly eyes, and they're supposed to come over to me.
Girl, bye. Man, they still doing that. Oh, I'm sorry.
We are in the South. So okay. I will say, if you see something, say something. That don't just apply to the airports. If you see something, say something.
That's the best advice that you could give. And also, I think, as Roderick said, figure out what quality means to you, and do you bring that same level of quality? That's going to be super important. So hold that thought, Julie. We'll be back in a second because, guys, I see you, but we got to bring Todd to this. We got to bring Todd up because we're going to address some of the issues from the male's perspective too. But hold tight. So if you want to reach out to Julie directly, and I'll put this back up at the end of the show, you can find her on IG at Julie O. Wadley. You can also find her online at elisimone.com if you're interested in her services. Yes, she is still doing matchmaking, even in the midst of a pandemic. We're just being creative, right? So she is definitely still doing that, but you can also reach out to her on IG at Julie Wadley. So Julie, stand by, and I will have you back up in just a second. So next guest, and this is for the fellas, so hang on, we got you too. But this is also for all everyone as well, because my next guest is not just a marriage and sex therapist, although I will say he made history as being the first African-American male sex therapist in the country. Let's just start there. If you missed his show that he did with me on season 2, when we were still in the studio before COVID, definitely go back and check that out, because we talk a lot about his story in the original pod show format, when we talk about their childhood and adulthood through pictures. That's the original format. And we had a very, very in-depth conversation. So definitely go back and check that episode. But I'm so excited to have Todd back on the show, because especially in the age of the pandemic and what he does, a lot of his focus is also on sex education, because what we don't know is just what we don't know. There's so many things are still taboo. And what I love about him is that he's going to always keep it real. So fellas, hang on, because he's definitely going to address this from a male's perspective. But as I said at the top of the show, if you're just joining us or you're watching the replay, drop your comments, drop your questions in the comments rather. And if you have a very specific question, shoot it to me by email at theconvopodshow@gmail.com. But without further ado, welcome to the show, none other than Todd Malloy. Hello, dear. And you are on mute. You're on mute. Now we got to fix that. We got to hear you.
Okay. Yep, you're right.
There we go.
There you go. There we go. How are you? Thank you.
I'm fabulous. How are you?
All is well. All is well.
So I see a lot of y'all popping in. Kenny, Ranzino, Tiffany, Roderick, Raphael. Yes, we're going to talk about it, Raphael, especially in this segment, because a lot of people, what I'm seeing, Todd, are asking questions. And mostly, and several men are talking about, like, how can you navigate relationships when people are still holding on to their baggage? So I kind of want to get into a little bit of your background, but that's kind of where I want to start, because it looks like that seems to be what I'm seeing from a lot of the male comments, as far as dealing with people, navigating people who are still struggling with their baggage. So for people who don't know how amazingly fabulous you are, who is Todd Malloy? And, I can't tell y'all this because we don't have a whole lot of time and go into a lot of detail, but we went from corporate America, wait for it, y'all, became a minister. You hear me? A minister. And then said, you know what? I'm gonna counsel people and do that, but no, I'm gonna take it a step further. I'm gonna be a sex therapist. You went from being a minister to a sex therapist, and he is fabulous. Keeps it real. Oh my gosh, I wish we had 3 hours because we could talk about 3 hours. We might have to just do a whole nother live show on sex, just because we had such a good time in the studio. So all of that part is the basics, but for people who don't know who you are. The company is called Inner Peace Counseling. You obviously do speaking engagements and all that all across the country. But what was the impetus that made you decide that you wanted to leave the pulpit to go back to school to help people in a different way? Why sex therapy? And what is it that you wish people knew about sex?
Well, I wanted to talk to people about everything. Bible deals with the whole person, but in church, you can't talk about money or sex. The two things we want the most, but we want to talk about the least. However, we're struggling because whether people recognize it or not, sex and sexuality is just another medium to see into their lives, and it's fluid throughout life and consistently changes, and I consistently see challenge. I've been called to be a part of the solution to the ills of society. This is my contribution to allowing us to have a better interaction than a worse one. Mm-hmm. I recognize my own life has taught me how fragile life is. Think about this. We're taught to be excellent students. We're taught to be excellent professionals. They teach us how to be in the military. Nobody teaches us really to be in an intimate relationship. You got pieces and parts, I got pieces and parts. Let's throw them together, hope for the best. However, but there's a way that we can be trained. There's a knowledge that we can educate ourselves about to allow us to really have a life worth celebrating. The question is, are we willing to invest our time and energy within ourselves to really come out, explore, be vulnerable, be transparent? Simply put, I'm here to kill the representative.
Instead of showing up with the rep. That's right. And that's what we heard a lot. I saw a couple of comments in the chat about people sending their representative. Okay, so what is the biggest thing that you find in your practice? Because you deal with couples in various stages. Some are able to work through it, some aren't. And you also deal with people in whatever issues, challenges they have from a sexuality perspective. But education is also obviously very important to you too. So since we have all these parts and we just kind of hope for the best, what's one of the biggest things that you wish people knew as they are trying to build and grow an intimate relationship in order to have a greater chance of success?
Well, the biggest thing I want to impress is that first you got to know who you are, because without knowing who you are, how can I find the appropriate compliment? Remember, our clothes have instructions on how to care for them. But if we don't teach people how to love us, how do they know? Because we have to stop assuming you're just supposed to know because you're grown. Just because you know doesn't mean that they're seeing life through your eyes. You remember, to a point earlier, people have baggage. Well, guess what? Everybody got baggage. Nobody's innocent. Everybody's guilty of having baggage. We are all perfectly flawed. The question is, am I working on mine, and am I connecting to a person that's working on theirs, and we can at least confess, here are my struggles. I can communicate those to you, and we can collectively edify each other, build each other, speak into life, and help each other achieve a collective goal.
And so with that said, one of the things that I'm seeing is that if we understand that, then what would be the reason that people would even want to do that? If you have people in this microwave age mentality, this text messaging, communication is different. Some people argue communication in relationships is dead for the most part. So if people have this mentality, how do you as an individual change that? Especially if what you're meeting are a bunch of people who have this mentality of the smash and dash or whatever the case may be, and no sense of wanting something that's going to be significant and be willing to put in the work for it.
Well, remember, but we also have to recognize it's natural in life. Science proves it, theory proves it. Similars attract. So if you're really attracting the wrong person, you really need to wonder about what energy you're sending and what baggage you got that's attracting them. No, but similars attract. It's not difference. I know people say in relationships, opposites attract. That's not actually true. That's a falsehood. What's true is similars attract. So if you find that you're coming across broken people, you may want to look at you, not always look outward. One of the things I always share in this modern day society, we lack account. The modern day cuss word is accountable, accountability. No, it's not my fault. It's that person's fault. If they would do something different, When do you take accountability for your feelings, your experience? When do you decide to invest in yourself and own your piece to a puzzle? Because if you change one part of a system, you change the whole system.
Okay. And so, fellas, I need y'all to chime in because you got your dude up here who's going to keep it real for all of us. But look, let's get to the sex part because that's what we waiting on. That's what everybody waiting on anyway. Okay. One of the things that we talked about on the original show was erotic focus. And I don't want to say it was see, want, have. Did I get it right?
What I'm saying is
we going straight to it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Women, this is not me because I'm a dude.
Okay.
It's the research says women lack erotic focus. Right. So what that means is women have to have their brains slowed down just a little bit to allow their vaginal tract, vasocongestion, all that good stuff to happen for them to be aroused. Men are more see, want, have. Think about it this way. Women want afterglow in order to have sex. Men want sex to get to afterglow because really men want to have sex so you can lay in the cut and we can lay back in the bed with our legs gapped open and like, yeah, I'm king. Because I got to my peace, I got to my safe place. However, a sister want to feel, oh, you love me, you value me, you appreciate me, you think I'm a wonderful person. Now I feel comfortable, safe, and secure to offer myself to you. We're good. However, dudes say, no. In order for me to feel that way, you got to take care of me. So we're wired differently. And with that understanding is how I shared, and I think I said on the last show, is that throughout the course of dating and the course of relationships, foreplay, interaction, all of these things change. Because foreplay, hey, hey, Yolanda, how you doing? You good? Come, we want to go to dinner. We smile, we laugh, we joke, we do what we do. Now we get together, we have kids. Now,
already? Damn, I'm sorry.
I'm respecting the time. You know I can be a preacher. You know I get long-winded.
I'm sorry, I'm kidding, y'all. I'm kidding.
So then we all of a sudden get into a real relationship. We're talking about mortgages, electric bill, gas bill, light bill, and we got kids. Foreplay is me understanding that women lack erotic focus. That women are concerned about body image, the to-do list. Did I take care of this? I got to do this for work. I got to do this for my man, my partner, whatever the case may be. What that means is now foreplay is, hey, honey, you've been with the kids. I got them. You go take care of yourself. I'll give them baths, give them showers, help them with their homework, so forth. That's foreplay. Why? Because now that takes some of the things off her to-do list. She actually has time to invest in herself. So by the time you get upstairs, she watching TV, doing whatever she needs to do, and she look at you. Now she look at you like you Idris. Because now you see me, you value me, you appreciate me, you see how hard I'm working, and you stop me, you help me and save me from myself to give myself the concern I need. Now that I got self-care and I can connect to myself and my body, I want to connect to you as well.
And so do you find that in working with couples, do you think the problem is that people don't really understand, for example, physically, like what turns them on, or people tend to be more uptight, or are we still, with the availability of sex everywhere on television, internet, whatever, do you think that's actually hurt people in terms of what their expectation is as far as sex? Because if you can get porn everywhere, you know, then if that's all you see, that's what you expect healthy sexuality is, and it's really not.
Right, because remember, everything you see on social media and TV, it's photoshopped and edited and scripted. Life ain't scripted. So it's nice that you got the woman on that, they're looking at you real sultry, you know, take this Viagra, you're going to have a 4-hour erection and all that other good stuff. Okay, have a 4-hour erection if you want to. Remember, blood's not circulating, it kills cells, and your penis is got to work after a while.
Okay, all the men just fainted. All the men just go back to.
Okay, so that's not realistic. Even when Sting said he had 4-hour sex, it wasn't 4-hour penetrative sex. What he understands is the largest sex organ is the skin. Skin starts from the top to the soles of the feet. So he's exploring the whole body. They're embracing, they're cuddling, they're fondling, doing all this. Yeah, there's some penetrative stuff, but there's an erection and a loss of an erection and a reclaiming of an erection and all of these different things. That's reality. TV is scripted. Porn is edited, looped, and all of these things. So, for example, oh my God, they had an hour and a half worth of sex. No, average sex, according to all the research, penetrative sex lasts anywhere between 7 and 15 minutes.
Ain't that the truth?
So this stuff you're seeing on TV is looped, edited. It's not reality. They're having labiaplasty. I got clients, women looking at their vaginal tract or looking at their vulva like something's wrong. I said, no, ma'am, they've gone under surgery. They've had surgery. It's called labiaplasty. I got a book of vulvas. Hey, this is what this looks like. See,
you have a book of vulvas.
Yeah, remember, I'm a sex.
That is amazing. That's just amazing. I'm sorry. I need to focus. Okay. So, we got several questions. So I want to get to some of the guys' questions first. First of all, if you just missed like a couple of the last 2 minutes, if you miss this, write this down. The largest sex organ is the skin. That is so important, particularly when you're talking about foreplay and all of that. And then the other thing that you said, similars attract, not opposites. But we'll get to that in just a second. All right.
Can I add one piece quickly? Can I add one piece?
Okay, we got time.
Okay. All right, cool. So think about this. It's important to grab that concept that the skin is the largest sex organ. Because now if I recognize that I have all of you to play with, I now have a mindset of creating an experience and not on a mission just for an orgasm.
Child. Keep talking. Go ahead now. And I'm
gonna be silly. As a man, you want to know this. Why? Because this is for grown people, right? No children.
Well, if they watch it, then shame on them. I already gave the disclaimer at the beginning of the show. So
all right. So think about this. Because arousal is about nerve endings. And so you got nerves all over your body. That means if I'm fondling, cuddling, starting from the tip of your toes to the top of your, you may have multiple orgasms. You may be having all of these experiences. So when I put in work, it gave me a little break. So I don't always have to focus on my erection. I can focus on just creating an experience and connecting and not thinking about the erection, allow the erection to do its own thing and say, oh, that's there. Let me use some of this. Oh, let me use some of this. Let me use some of that. Hey, let's do some other thing. Now it's an experience. Now it's the relationship or the interaction. It's less about the tyranny of the orgasm and creating the outer body experience that is far bigger than the sum of the parts.
And that is so important, the tyranny of the orgasm, because the focus, if the focus is just on the orgasm and you don't know the other parts of it, then for the man and the woman, then that's what's going to, that generally, tell me if I'm wrong, is what's going to create some conflict ultimately in the sexual compatibility.
Correct. Because think about this. Women, the more orgasms a woman has, the better it is for them. The first one's nice, second one, hey, third one, hey. All right, you're doing some real work now when we get to four. Now, however, for women, for a man, it works the opposite direction. His first orgasm is the best. Second one, okay. Third one, it starts to become painful after a while. So
Tell the
my
truth.
thing is this. Right. So therefore, if I spend more time with the whole person and you get yours, by the time we share and explore, we having our best one at the same time.
Okay, hallelujah. I'm gonna finish this bottle of wine before we get through the rest of the show. Okay, 2 questions. All right. So one of the questions from the guys is, what should I know about, this is a great question, what should I know about sexual health from a male's perspective?
Wow, excellent. Thank you. I've been talking about that all day today. Men, I'll say it this way. Women talk about post-menopause, pre and post menopause, and vaginal atrophy, lubes, Kegel exercises, all of these different things. Well, gentlemen, we have the same issue. We don't talk about it because, we go to the barbershop and in the locker room and tell lies. But what happens is, through the course of life, our sexual health, sexuality changes with hormone changes, stress, pressure, all of these things. So really at the age of 30, a man should actually have his free calculated testosterone level to establish a baseline for the rest of his life. Now, I'm going to be silly serious for the moment. Bros, y'all understand? When we was 18, we was at 12 o'clock, okay, we was at 12,
right, there you go.
We was at 12 o'clock. You know what that means when I'm saying we was at 12 o'clock.
Right there.
Okay, now we're a little older and we might at 11, 10, some of us might be at 9. Well,
okay,
to prevent that.
I'm listening.
Hey, remember, there's such thing as called erectile dysfunction. So
okay.
That's why I stopped the crop.
Okay.
However, but men should be doing Kegel exercises as well. Because that helps to strengthen the muscles and maintain the rigidity of the erection. Men should be having multiple erections throughout the week. Doesn't necessarily mean to ejaculation, because over time, a man's penis can shrink at least up to about 1/4 of an inch. Why? Because remember, it's an artery, like the heart artery, and there could be congestion. Just as in the heart, it could happen in the penis. That's a scientific word. I'm not trying to be graphic. So therefore, making sure we have multiple, even an erection a day, even if you have to self-pleasure, doesn't have to be to ejaculation, facilitates consistent, healthy blood flow. By doing the Kegel exercises, basically Kegel exercise, gentlemen, is basically holding back a bowel movement. You gotta hold it before you get to the bathroom. But by rhythmically, and I always believe in numbers. This is different. Just work with me. The number 6 is similar to reflects the urinary system. So when I do anything associated to the urinary system, I'll do 6, 12, 18, whatever. But it's basically to hold it and relax it. Hold it and relax it. But again, I could talk about this all day, but that's just things. There are things that men should be doing. Ladies.
Oh, wait, let's pause there for a second, because you got to answer this question. Now, you were talking about erections and men having erections on a regular basis, not necessarily to have orgasm. This is a really good question. I want you to think about it also from a biblical perspective. So Raphael asked, is masturbation wrong biblically? Although I've seen studies that suggest that frequent ejaculation is healthy for the prostate to help prevent prostate cancer.
Correct. He's absolutely correct. Now, from a biblical perspective, you have to look at it this way. I recognize in the Bible, it talks about self-pleasuring and all those things.
Be specific, because a lot of people don't know that.
Right. Wait a minute. Well, I can't call out the scripture right now.
Well, no, I'm not saying like Ecclesiastes. I'm just saying like, what does it say in general?
But basically, when it talks about Moses playing with his rod and different things, okay? Okay. What I'm sharing with you is how I justify it. Theologians, y'all wrestle, say what you got to say. If the question is, are we under the letter of the law or the spirit of the law? Old Testament, where that comes from, there were the 602 Hebraic laws that govern life. But with the coming of Christ, it says, love me and keep my commandments. It's not keep my commandments so you love me. It's about the relationship that we have that really signifies it's not your obedience, because real talk, a man after God's own heart was a whoremonger. The father of our faith, don't be mad, ladies and gentlemen. That's probably why I ain't in the pulpit no more. But the father of our faith had pimp-like tendencies. Yes, he did give his wife away. Yes, he did not say he pretended it was somebody, it was a relative. And God spoke to the king and said, hey, dude, you gave me your wife. That's pimp-like tendency. However, he's still the father of our faith. He's still to be honored. It's about relationship, not about legalese. Now, because it is edifying physically, and we are supposed to take care of our temple, how can it be wrong?
Oh, you want me to say something? Because the mic just dropped.
That's all I got. That's all I got.
Okay, so you were talking to the men. What do you have anything else that you want to chime in as far as good sexual health? Because I would imagine a lot of men, because I hadn't heard about doing Kegels for men specifically, to make sure that they're maintaining good sexual health.
The only thing I want to say is for men, and because I get this a lot, is when men aren't oftentimes having sex with their partner, it's always that he's doing something shady. If you ain't hitting me, you're hitting something else. We recognize men's sexuality and their expression of sexuality is changing throughout life. So there are hormonal changes and so forth. And a man can't come to you and say, hey, I'm not secure about my sexuality. So men tend to suffer in silence. So when we're going through having erectile dysfunction issues, all of these things, because hormone things are going on, we don't understand them and we're suffering in silence, we tend to retreat. Just because all men don't always want to have sex. It's situational. Maybe as a teenager, but when you start getting mortgages, have to deal with bosses and hormonal changes of life changes. And it's really about men being honest to be saying, hey, be willing to be vulnerable. Because by you being vulnerable, women have a greater propensity to be vulnerable and willing to cover you and care for you appropriately. Because if you're going to trust me like this, I got to do for real. I even heard Neil Long say, a man that's vulnerable, I'll allow him to get my hair wet in the shower. But if you still got a fig leaf on, you're really blocking me from my role and position. So how can I work with you?
And so what is it that you wish men and women truly knew about having a healthy sexual relationship?
Allow there to be room for openness and transparency and vulnerability. True intimacy is about safety, trust, and vulnerability. Because again, in real relationships, if we're not just smashing, if we're doing real stuff, true intimacy and sex comes from the emotional connection, not the movement of pieces and parts. So being transparent, willing to be vulnerable, facilitates the emotional connection and bond that allows us now, when our physical pieces and parts come together, we have the outer body experience and connect to the godlike experience.
And how common is it in this day and age that there's women out there who still don't have orgasms, still never experienced orgasms into adulthood?
I think anorgasmia is somewhere around 10% of women, but
is that the term? That's the actual term?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So, but probably more women experience it. However, it's really, people have to understand we're responsible for our orgasm. It's not somebody else's responsibility to give us an orgasm. So
say that again and explain.
You got to stop expecting. You got to stop expecting other people to give you an orgasm. You're responsible for your own orgasm. Why? You should know your body better than anybody. You've been with you your whole life, and then you letting somebody else figure you out and gonna poke on you like you a pinata and bring it to a
I
prize.
got to drink on that one.
And then you make it his fault.
Did you say,
Make it
wait,
his fault.
stop, Todd.
You make it his fault that you don't have no skills. No, you don't know your body.
Did you think about it this
way. Let's say, Hemi, think about this. Remember, if we start talking during sex, it really kills the mood. The moment I start thinking in the midst of sex, so if you do talk more to the left, more to the right, baby, you know where you want to be. Shift your hips, girl. Go and shift your hips, get to what you want, because you want what you want when you want it. Therefore, utilize the power, the knowledge, the skill that you have on yourself to facilitate the experience.
Right.
Remember, Tupac said, tell daddy how you want it. Daddy never said how he was going to give it.
Right. And stop yelling in the ear. Like, whose is it?
Only yell in my ear if it's like, oh God, oh Shano.
Right.
Okay, that's a different thing.
Yeah, that's a whole nother show. We ain't getting into all that. Okay. All right. So there's a couple of other questions and a couple of comments I want to talk about real quick, because I think the issue is, as far as men's sexual health, is incredibly important, because there's a stigma about, not, like you said, men not talking about it or not having a safe space to talk about it. One of the questions that I saw in the work that you do as a sex therapist, is it healthy for you to be able to explore your fantasies by speaking to a sex therapist? Like, is that one of the roles? Like, if someone is exploring sexual fantasies, is that a safe space to do that, or not so much?
Most definitely. Okay. I have clients that may want to. For example, I had a client who's had a very far, their definition, vanilla sex life. Their partner transitioned, that means died, and she wanted to be introduced to the BDSM community.
What does that mean for people who don't know?
Basically, alternative sex. Basically, bondage, dominance, sadomasochism, kink, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. So, in the process, hey, I'm not familiar with this, and I just need some guidance. So, they would come to this type of place and share their fantasies, share their desires, and so forth. And I facilitate their awareness, connect them with communities, and to learn, to grow, to share, give them reading literature, and facilitate them having that type of experience. Okay. I'm not there physically. I'm not physically there. I don't touch anybody, but I give them all the skills and tools to be able to be successful and explore however they choose to explore.
So what would you say to women as far as their sexual health? What are some of the main things that they need to do to maintain that?
It's be aware. Listen to your body. Ask questions. Don't suffer in silence. Most people, men and women, I hear too many clients suffer in silence. I've had a woman that had vaginal pain for 8 years and never told her husband. She just prayed for it to be over. And my thing is, wow, how much do you value yourself if in a most intimate moment you're in pain and you're not giving yourself permission to say, ouch? Don't suffer in silence. Communicate. And if you're with somebody that don't want to hear you, you're with the wrong person. They do not value you.
Angie asked the question, why do younger men... Wow, shoot, let me ask too. So why do younger men tend to like older women? Is it for sexual gratitude, or is it something else? I mean, gratification rather. Sexual gratification, or is it something else?
Number one, part of it may be sex. Let's just be real. Because older women are more comfortable with their body. The older a woman gets, the more comfortable she is with her body, the more body aware she is. But because before that, you got to be sugar, spice everything nice. Don't be that fast tail girl around the corner. You got your mama's voice. You got all of these other voices. So sexually, now they're taking the lead. They educate, they teach, they do all of these things. And hey, I'm on a free ride. Also, I was talking to a young man today that was dating an older woman. He said, she teaches me stuff. She actually talks to me and actually speaks into my life, and it helps me grow. So.
Okay. And so, and I think one of the things that you advocate for in relationships, and I'll get to the last couple of questions, is that what we don't want is to have because sex and sexuality is just all over all the time, easy, instant access, that we don't confuse that to what a healthy sexual relationship looks like. Most people can look at it and think of it as fantasy, but if you see that all the time and you think that that's, for example, how a woman reacts, poke it like a pinata, suddenly she's going to have an orgasm. Insane. Like, that's just not how it works. You know what I mean?
Correct.
But I see two questions from Unc. One part, what do you say to men who don't want that emotional connection with a woman?
At least be honest about it up front.
Mm-hmm.
Just be honest about it up front. If nothing else, save yourself the after headache, because you know she's gonna find you.
Right. And so
they can be honest.
And so is this the same advice you would give to a woman who has sexual fantasies but may be afraid to share them with her partner for fear of being judged or anything like that?
Right. My point is, do you have a right to your truth and the experiences you want to have? Who is asking you permission to live? So why are you concerned about other people?
Oh my God, say that again. Why
are you asking, who's asking you permission to live? And they often say nobody. So why are you concerned about what they think?
Okay, well, there we go. And how about that, y'all? How about that? So, Todd, I want you to stay here for a second. So for those of you, we still have a little
one type question.
Oh, honey,
I know it's a finger. It's a church finger. It's a church finger.
Okay, you got it.
I see a lot of people ask some real good questions. Hey, somebody wrote, be transparent with your partner and with your physician. That's true, but just to be honest with you, I've facilitated teaching physicians. Not every physician is comfortable talking about sex. You have to be comfortable with your own sexuality and all of these things to address it. Remember, a medical professional is to keep you alive, not necessarily concerned about the quality of your life. Sexual health is a quality of life issue. So they can be helpful, however, but only 25%, based on some last numbers I looked at, 25% of the medical staff, doctors, are comfortable talking about sex.
That's fascinating, because if that's the person who you expect is going to give you decent advice and they're not comfortable, that's very important. So that's also going to be very important in terms of who you choose to share that information with from a medical perspective. Let me ask you the last question I asked Julie before I bring Julie back up here. Why do you think, because you're dealing with from sex education perspective, dealing with sexual dysfunction and whatever that looks like, and from the perspective of marriage, why do you think so many relationships fail? What are two or three of the things that you see that seems to rank up there?
Because we become too familiar. We forget that life is dynamic and not static. What it is for me to be in that level of relationship with you, I begin to put you in a box and pretend that I know how you're going to respond in that. Part of that is necessary for us to feel emotionally secure. But if you do too much of that, now I know I frame you in that box, but even though you're evolving, I'm not aware of it because I only look to see you one way. In relationships, long-term relationships, we forget the importance of exploration and wonder. We have to maintain exploration and wonder. For example, every day we leave the house and come back, we're a different person. Why is that? Because while we've been apart, we've been impacted by life in a lot of different ways that have stimulated avenues of thought and so forth. How many of us really are checking in with each other saying, hey, who are you today? Introduce me to this new you. Because think about this. I was told, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I was told a Black woman has a right to change her hairstyle every 2 weeks. That means at minimum, every 2 weeks, she's brand new. You need to find out who she is. Right?
Okay.
My thing is, as we're changing and as we're evolving, you're giving each other a memo. Hey, you know what? I used to like Brussels sprouts. I ain't that big of a fan of Brussels sprouts anymore. Whatever that is, whatever those conversations. But as we're changing, as we're being impacted by life, there has to be that exchange. We have to stop saying, oh, if I say it this way, they just gonna trip. No, you don't know that, because in present moments, old data points are not relevant. Why? Because it's not an apples for apples comparison. There are different variables in every moment. So I have to allow you to be open to allowing you to be brand new and take the risk. We want to play life safely. Ain't nothing about life safe.
Mm-hmm.
But we
That's
can't
very
be
true.
right. But what we can do is be secure in our ability to cope and adapt, because we do it all day, every day. It's common. Remember, I always share with my clients, I said, why fear the unknown when the unknown is common? We beat the unknown all day, every day. So why be afraid of it? Explore it, expand, share your questions, your wonder. That's how that will facilitate us staying together. Share goals, share vision. I know what's important in your life, and you care about me to know what's important in my life. That you're willing to step outside of your box to make somebody comfortable. I value you enough to step outside of my comfort zone to meet you where you are.
So on that note, like I said, takeaways: largest sex organ is the skin. Similar is attract. The whole younger man, older woman can work both ways. I see where left a comment. Is it not paradox that younger women like older men and enjoy very healthy sexual relationships? Absolutely not. I think the question that was posed earlier was like younger men particularly pursuing older women, but then there's older women who prefer the company of a younger man. The question is there going to be the compatibility beyond just that attraction and all of those things for anything that looks like a relationship? So I'm gonna bring Julie back so we can ask a few more questions before we wrap it up. If you have other questions, still continue to drop them in the comments rather. And so if you need to get in touch with Todd, best way through social media and telephone. I am Todd Malloy is his IG handle. Go ahead and follow him over there. And of course, the office number directly is 704-937-2286. Again, that's 704-937-2286. It's Inner Peace Counseling. Is it .org? It's Inner Peace Counseling.
.com.
My apologies. So innerpeacecounseling.com is the website. You can also learn more.
Innerpeacecounselingcenter.com.
Got it. Innerpeacecounselingcenter.com. So definitely go check that out. So Julie, all right. So relationships, sex, all of that. So I'm getting a little bit of an echo. I don't know if that's on my end or your end, but I think we're still okay. So can you hear me clearly?
Yep.
Okay. So one of the last questions that I'll two of the last questions. The first one I'll pose to you. Given the state of dating and relationships right now, in particular, if a person is online dating, what should they be looking for and what should they avoid?
With online dating, I think you should be looking for someone who is actually into the conversation. One, if you find someone who is attractive with their photos, but they have nothing to say in their profile, they're in it to either they are just, there for experimentation, or they're not there for genuine connection. Because if they were, they would take the time to tell you exactly who they are and what they're looking for. So really look for someone who took the effort to build out their profile to share who they are and what they're looking for. You also want to get to the point where you feel comfortable enough with the exchange to take it offline. Don't spend all your time online. The whole point of getting online is to get offline. You want to get to a point where you feel comfortable enough to take it offline and build that connection either in person or, in real life. So really focus on making sure that you are safe, because there are a lot of characters out there online. You really do want to make sure that you feel comfortable, that there aren't any red flags. If they are being shady with numbers or meeting you in a certain place, or, they want to meet you at night, or, just if it sounds funny, then it probably is funny. So always look out for yourself first. Make sure that you are looking for building connections and get off as fast as you can.
And beware of profiles that got a bunch of car selfies. That's a bad sign.
Yeah, I'll say this. Pictures are pretty much like 99% the most important thing on, or I shouldn't say 99%, 90% is really the photos, because that's what grabs people, right? So you want to make sure that your photos are, if you can't afford a professional photographer to get it done, make sure it's outside. Make sure you have a plethora of different pictures that show you in different places, headshot, body shot, a shot with you in formal dress, a shot with you in informal dress, doing something that you enjoy, so that they can get a visual idea of who you are, and make sure that who you are online matches who you are in person. Because the worst thing that they want to do is like, dude, you ain't nothing like you was online. So you don't want that to happen.
Gotcha. All right. And Todd, from your perspective, I know we kind of talked about in general in terms of why you think relationships fail. And you talked about what do you think is important as far as intimacy and speaking and being honest and truthful. But in the dating phase, before marriage and kids and all of that, what's the biggest thing that you think is important that people need to know in terms of building a healthy relationship first before they can build a healthy relationship with someone else?
It's really about self-awareness. Who are you? What is it that you actually really want? And then take the steps to have what you want, as opposed to just settle for what's available. Again, the more I am aware of myself, the better I'm equipped to connect to a compliment. If people look at me, they'll look at me and say, dude, bull in a china shop. Okay, yeah, maybe. But actually, I'm a fine piece of china. I can break. Mm-hmm. So it's important for me to know that, so when I come across a partner, I can introduce that self and explain how to handle me. But if I see that you're a sledgehammer, I already know right out the gate not to mess with you. Mm-hmm. Because I'm self-aware enough and I know what's best for me. Therefore, that automatically begins to build a litmus test for me to have the healthy and the proper connection.
And that piggybacks off of what you said, Julie, in terms of being clear about what you want. Do you both suggest taking the time to write that down, or an exercise a person or exercises that people can do to start to build that self-awareness?
I do.
What it is, right, I do. There's a number of ways therapeutically that we do it, but what I really start off with people is ask them, who are you? It's the most difficult question for people to answer. It takes months sometimes for people to answer, who am I? Without mentioning name, role, function, or title. Mm-hmm. Characteristic, intrinsically, who are you? And once we begin that, because once I know where I am, it's very easy to get to where I want to go. But if I don't know where I am, it's almost impossible to get to where I want to go, because I don't know what direction to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I suggest, when you write down those characteristics of what you're looking for in a relationship and in a partner, not all characteristics are weighted the same. So you can't put, he's 6 foot, she's 5'4", and honest in the same category. There needs to be a hierarchy of characteristics that you absolutely have to have. This is what you want, and then this is what you can kind of negotiate with. It's a nice to have, but it's not at the end of the day, it's not important. So you want to make sure that you put them in the right priority, but then you also, once you write it down, constantly be looking at it to revise based off of your experience. Because you can have a list and say, okay, I went out with this guy and I need to add a few more because I didn't see, my experience tells me that there's more that I need. But you also have to be the steward of your own standards. You can't assign that to somebody else. You have to be the one that says, oh, you don't have this, I gotta go. You don't have that, yeah, it's not working out for me.
Okay. So for people who are just catching this towards the end, you got to go back to the beginning. The replay is going to be available on our YouTube channel. It's definitely going to be available. However, you may have caught this on Facebook. If you haven't done so already, make sure that you go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Very easy to find at The Conversation with Yolanda Trotman. If you haven't already done so, make sure you like the Facebook page. Make sure you follow us on IG and Twitter at all things at The Combo Podshow. If you need to get in touch with Todd, you can reach him at I am Todd Malloy on IG, 704-937 2286. If you need to get in touch with Julie, and she is still doing matchmaking at Julie O. Wadley Julie O. Wadley on Instagram and at elisimone.com if you want to reach out to her as far as her services. And of course, make sure this episode is going to be up on the website probably in about 20 minutes. So you can go back and check out this full episode. We'll be of course, I always post a few little tidbits here and there, but thank you, all of you who are able to tune in, chime in. Some excellent questions. We're probably going to have a part 2 on the sex piece, Todd, because as you can see in the comments, we didn't get to all of the questions. There were a lot of great questions that we didn't get tonight. So we will definitely have a part 2 of this to be able to have that second conversation. Next show will be in 2 weeks. Very excited about next week's show. The show in 2 weeks on the 15th. We're going to be talking about, so what's going on with your health? We're going to be talking about the state of health, not just in Mecklenburg County, but nationwide. My guest will be Dr. Raynard Washington, who is the incoming public health director here for Mecklenburg County when our current health department director retires at the end of the year. You may have remembered him from a previous episode of the conversation when we were talking about the impact of COVID. He's an epidemiologist. So obviously we're going to talk about COVID, the Delta variant, what that means for Mecklenburg County. What can we expect? Are we having another shutdown? All of those things you really want to know in terms of what's happening, the booster shot, all of those things that you're hearing on the news now. We're going to have an in-depth conversation about that, but we're also going to be talking about health from other perspectives, things that we're not talking about now that aren't in the news, health disparities, issues with sexually transmitted diseases and how it's impacting different communities, issues with diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease, things that are also affecting all communities, but definitely communities of color, how to advocate for yourself in a health setting when you're talking to your doctors and all of that. We're going to be talking about so much. So definitely save the date for September the 15th. That's going to be another live show where you can ask your questions. Very real talk conversation with him. He keeps it real. So it will definitely be a conversation that you don't want to miss. So Julie, Todd, thank you so much. Had a great time.
Thank you.
Some of y'all might need to go get a cigarette. Bait after all of this. Go do your Kegels, y'all. Kegels, man.
Yes.
Man. I bet y'all better be, men and women, I bet y'all better be doing your Kegels tonight. And if you're not sure, I just see where Dr. Washington just popped up. Yeah, do your Kegels, y'all. But all jokes aside, I think some of the most important takeaways: are you attracting the wrong person? Understand that similars attract because we're all perfectly flawed. The skin, people, is the largest sex organ. Get to know that. Get to know yourself. Know what you like, because you can't have anybody else be in charge of your orgasm other than you, so that you don't fall victim to the tyranny or the orgasm, which is what Todd talked about. Men, let's get away from this see, want, have. Ladies, talk about what you need. Don't ever suffer in silence. Certainly not during the sexual act, because pleasure is something that we all deserve. So with that being said, good night, everyone. Definitely share this broadcast. Go back and catch the replay. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Night, everybody.
Bye.